Imagine a train, not just transporting goods, but generating infinite energy across an entire continent. This isn't science fiction. It's the audacious vision sparking an unprecedented investor race in Africa right now. Billions are on the table as global players vie for control of this revolutionary project set to redefine power generation and distribution by the next decade. At the heart of this story lies what many are calling Africa's Infinity Train, a project so ambitious that it challenges our conventional ideas of both transportation and energy. The concept is deceptively simple yet profoundly transformative, combining advanced regenerative braking, solar harvesting systems, and kinetic energy capture into a self-sustaining loop of perpetual power. Every time the train moves, it doesn't just consume energy, it creates it, storing the excess in onboard systems and exporting it to the grid along its route. The result is not merely a new form of transport, but a mobile power station capable of electrifying entire regions as it passes through. Communities that once lived in energy poverty could suddenly find themselves powered by the very train that connects them to the rest of the continent. The idea takes inspiration from well-established principles of regenerative braking, which allow vehicles to capture energy during deceleration. Yet this train magnifies that principle exponentially, combining it with solar panels embedded across its surface and advanced kinetic harvesting systems that turn every motion into usable electricity. What makes this design unique is the AI-driven energy management system at its core, an algorithmic brain that constantly balances intake and output to ensure no what is wasted. Unlike previous dreams of perpetual motion machines, which broke down under the laws of thermodynamics, the Infinity Train doesn't rely on magic. Instead, it relies on continuous, tangible inputs, sunlight, movement, and braking that exist naturally in abundance. It's not a violation of physics, but an elegant exploitation of physics to create an endless cycle of usable power. Skeptics naturally point to the long history of free energy claims that ended in disappointment, fraud, or technical failure. But African engineers working out of innovation hubs in countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya insist this is fundamentally different. They argue that the combination of advanced materials, AI optimization, and Africa's unique environmental conditions, long sunny days, vast rail networks, and growing demand, make this project uniquely viable. The first prototypes, currently running on experimental tracks, have already demonstrated energy surplus far greater than what was required to move the train itself. Reports suggest that one train alone could provide electricity to entire small towns along its route, creating an infrastructure model that doubles as both transport and power grid. It is this dual function that has sparked a frenzy among global investors, who see in the Infinity Train not just a technological curiosity, but a trillion-dollar opportunity. Sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East, tech giants from Silicon Valley, and state-backed enterprises from China are all competing to secure early stakes in the project. For oil-rich nations, the motivation is hedging against the inevitable decline of fossil fuels. For technology firms, the appeal lies in controlling the software and AI infrastructure that will run these mobile power stations. For geopolitical players like China and the US, the prize is dominance over a new energy market that could rival oil in its global significance. It is no exaggeration to say that the Infinity Train has triggered an economic and geopolitical scramble reminiscent of the 19th century race for oil or the 20th century nuclear arms race. But unlike those, this one is centered in Africa, giving the continent a rare chance to dictate terms rather than merely supply resources. African nations involved in the project are well aware of its potential and are negotiating hard to ensure that ownership, benefits, and intellectual property do not simply flow outward. The stakes are enormous. Whoever controls this technology could theoretically reshape global trade routes, energy markets, and transportation industries in one stroke. Imagine fleets of Infinity Trains moving not just across Africa but eventually across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, each doubling as clean power plants on rails. Traditional energy industries would be decimated almost overnight. Fossil fuel-based transport systems would collapse under the weight of their inefficiency. Entire logistics industries would have to reconfigure themselves around a new model where energy isn't a commodity to be bought, but a byproduct of movement itself. New markets are already being imagined around energy-on-demand services. Communities along the train's routes could literally tap into passing trains for electricity, charging infrastructure springing up around the schedules of these mobile grids. Construction booms would follow as new tracks, stations, and power hubs are built to accommodate this unprecedented fusion of transport and energy. For Africa, this could mean something even greater: the chance to leapfrog stages of development that took other nations centuries to build. Rather than slowly building centralized power plants and sprawling fossil-based infrastructure, African countries could skip directly to a distributed, sustainable, high-tech model of energy and transport. Instead of importing energy, Africa could export it, turning itself from a resource-dependent continent into a global energy superpower. The potential ripple effects are staggering. The rise of infinity trains could accelerate electrification across industries, from mining to manufacturing, as reliable energy supply finally matches Africa's resource potential. New job opportunities would emerge, from engineers and data scientists to construction workers and logistics managers. The reduction in energy poverty could dramatically improve quality of life, powering schools, hospitals, and industries in rural and urban areas alike. Socially, the infinity train could become a symbol of a new era, an Africa that leads the world in innovation rather than trailing behind. Of course, challenges remain, and not all is utopian. There are concerns that the technology, if dominated by outside investors, could exacerbate inequality rather than reduce it. If profits flow primarily to foreign corporations, Africa could once again find itself supplying innovation without reaping the rewards. Ensuring equitable access and local ownership is therefore as critical as building the trains themselves. Governments will need to navigate the thin line between attracting global investment and protecting national interests. Ethical questions also arise about who gets access first. Will urban centers be prioritized over rural communities? Will poorer nations be left behind while richer ones capitalize first? And what happens if this technology becomes weaponized in geopolitical struggles, with countries blocking access to rivals? Despite these challenges, the momentum is undeniable. The world has entered the infinity train era, whether it is ready or not. The principle behind it, the infinity principle as some call it, may not stop with trains. Already, innovators are imagining how similar energy loops could be applied to cargo ships, planes, and even city infrastructure. Entire fleets of vehicles could one day move endlessly while powering the world around them. Buildings might adopt similar kinetic solar systems, making cities not just consumers but producers of infinite energy. In that future, energy scarcity as we know it could become a relic of history, replaced by a model of sustainable abundance. The infinity train is more than a machine. It is a symbol of possibility, of Africa stepping onto the global stage not as a follower but as a leader. It is the story of engineers who dared to ask, what if transportation itself could be the power plant? It is the story of investors who see not just risk but world-changing reward. And it is the story of billions of people whose lives may be transformed by the hum of an engine that never stops giving back. As the train moves, so too does Africa's future, carrying with it the promise of infinite energy and a new chapter for the world. This is why the race is so intense, why the stakes are so high, and why the world is watching every track being laid with bated breath. Because in that motion, in that perpetual cycle of energy reborn, lies the spark of a revolution that could redefine the very foundations of global society. The age of the infinity train has begun, and with it, the world may never look at energy or Africa the same way again. The infinity train also forces us to rethink the relationship between movement and power in the modern age. For centuries, transport has been seen purely as a consumer of energy, devouring coal, oil, and electricity just to move people and goods from one place to another. Now, for the first time, movement itself becomes a generator, turning every journey into a power-producing act. This inversion of logic could spark entirely new economic models where the cost of travel is not an expense but an investment that yields energy dividends. Imagine booking a freight journey where not only are goods delivered, but the act of delivery generates enough electricity to power an entire industrial park. Imagine communities celebrating the arrival of a train not just for the passengers or supplies it brings, but for the surplus energy it injects into the grid. That kind of future changes everything, from city planning to rural development. High-speed rails would no longer be judged only on how quickly they move, but on how much energy they contribute back to society. Even global climate goals could be accelerated as infinity trains become a weapon against carbon emissions while expanding connectivity. Instead of asking how much energy we must consume to power civilization, we may begin asking how much energy civilization itself can produce by existing and moving. This paradigm shift explains why investors are pouring in with such urgency, knowing that whoever secures early control could dominate not just the transport sector, but the very backbone of the global energy economy. And yet, behind the numbers and politics lies something more profound: a vision of a world where every motion matters, where progress itself fuels the lights that guide humanity forward. That is the true promise of Africa's infinity train, and it is only just beginning to unfold.